Welcome to Dare I Said It, a podcast where we dare to think differently about entrepreneurship. Today's episode: how to do terminations with empathy. Now, I debated if I should pick this as a first topic on my first episode of my podcast, but given the OpenAI drama, which we've all heard about, so I won't go into details, and the fact that Sam Altman got fired and surprised the hell out of everybody. So it sounded it's the right time to discuss this particular topic, which I had originally planned for doing it later. Again, starting from a negative note doesn't make me feel good, but I did promise you I was going to be raw and authentic. So that's what I'm going to do. First things first, I am not talking about layoffs or reduction in force. That's another topic in the future. How do we handle that scenario as we as leaders? So I will cover that in the future. I'm purely talking about performance-based terminations. So an employee you've been trying to work with, you have not been happy. The performance is degrading as the day go by, and you've been a lot of us delaying the inevitable, if you will. Or maybe the performance is related to your own leadership performance, dare I say, right? Maybe. We're all humans. We make mistakes all the time. We get busy. It happens. End of the day, no matter what, how can this be? How can we handle terminations as empathetically as possible? As empathetic as possible. Um, that's what matters most. What's interesting, thinking about the first principles, because there's so many different ways we can talk about it, but I'm trying to force myself to what's the most important thing. And it turns out what the most important thing is not what you do or what you say when you're firing somebody, which is a very hard thing to do for everybody. It's not something HR wants to do. It's not something you want to do, obviously, and it's certainly not anything that employee wants to hear. Right? It's already a negative situation, so it's you're gonna have to do your best and to go through the process and be as respectful as possible. Obviously, it's none of that matters as much as what you as leaders have done before the firing. That's what matters the most. What you've done before. And you're probably like, Vijay, wait, I thought this episode was how to fire them empathetically, right? So that, yes, but it's leading up to the situation. What you've done is what matters the most, because by the time you get to the point where you're talking to them, it's already too late, right? Whether you've did the right thing or not. So what is that? How do you measure that? How do you measure if I've done everything right until that situation? Is it my fault? Is it me as a leader? Did I do something wrong? Maybe it's them. And how do I measure it? Right? As I always said, I'm going to keep it short. It comes down to one measurement. What is that one measurement? Was the employee surprised when you told him or her? That's it. That's it. If the employee was surprised and worst, shocked, you didn't do good enough job as a leader. There's no better way to say it. You did not do a good enough job as a leader. We did not do a good job, because I've made this mistake as myself. So that is the most empathetic thing you can do as a leader, is what you did prior to that, to respect their time, respect their how busy you were. Did you ignore it? You ignore the progress for a long time. Most of us have done this. Most leaders, including me, done this. I waited way too long. We don't want to have that conversation for some reason, right? And because we're it almost feels like we're doing them a favor, but we kind of avoid it. But you know where it's heading, right? So that's the worst thing, accidentally being disrespectful. Nobody's setting out to disrespect them. The fact that you clicked on this tells me you're a good person. You see what I did there? Nobody's trying to be disrespectful, but that's what it comes across to the employee. And that's what you want to avoid. So the best thing you can absolutely do is to be forthcoming, and you've done your job enough so that it's not a surprise. So before I end this, and by the way, as first principles, that's what matters the most above all else. Process, HR, was the HR involved? Did you document this, that? All that's important too, but this is the most critical thing I look for. I don't care about prescribing or forcing my leaders to do this particular process because that's not what it's about. It's about was the employee surprised? So, on that note, so what can we do? Right? Let's quick tips we can talk about. What can we do to make sure that they're not surprised? What are some of the things that we can do prior to this event happening that we can that we should be doing that we haven't been? Number one, consistent feedback, which I just covered. Right? You have to be consistent. Right? Consistently providing the feedback, and well before the performance even degrades a little bit, you got to catch that, and you got to catch that, and you got to have a very honest, respectful conversation with them, so that you're doing them a favor and they love you for it. That's the thing, because I've heard way too many employees or friends of mine that says, "Yeah, I don't know how I'm doing." That's not good. If an employee says, "I don't know how I'm doing," that's we fail as leaders. There should be no time that employees wondering how they're doing it at a company. That's a failure in management, in my opinion, right? So you cannot let that happen. So be have I don't want to sit here and talk about some grand process. You have to have weekly one-on-ones, bi-weekly. It's like, no, you guys are leaders. You're smart enough to figure out what that real process should be. So this is why I said I don't prescribe or I don't force my managers to have a process. I only measure results. The person surprised. If they were surprised, I have to do the one-on-one with the manager to talk about what I expect, right? So that's what you have to make sure that you're focusing on. No, once a month, right? Average. Again, I'm not prescribing. And the reason I don't like to prescribe once a week, because it all depends on the situation. Like I've had very good relationship with my team that reports into me. We were all on the same page. I knew enough and how they were doing. Now, granted, even in that situation, I wish I had a little bit more one-on-one. Because we all get busy, but I was fairly confident that in team meetings or whenever that is, I made sure that everybody knew that how appreciative, how well they're doing, and so on. But what I spend time is there anybody in my team that I need to really focus on, right? Then I need to have one-on-one, because again, I want to catch that early as much as possible, right? So that's it. Consistent feedback, not nothing groundbreaking, right? We all know this already. We already know this, right? It's got to be said over and over to ourselves, to myself, right? So second, performance review is not just about reviewing the employee from you, right? You're a facilitator as a leader. You have to act like that, right? You're just a facilitator. You as a leader are trying to hire people that are smarter than you, right? Leave the ego out of it. It's not about ego. Like, lead with your heart, not your muscles, right? It doesn't work. Do not use muscle. But thankfully, I'm that came naturally to me. I've always been. If the mistake that the feedback I've ever gotten from CEOs is like I'm a little too nice, but I, I'm not convinced that I've never been convinced, nor I have the personality to be I'll say it, an asshole to employees to get what I want, because I don't want it that way. And I know for a fact, been doing this for 20 years, that I can get results by leading with heart and being empathetic, being respectful, and working my butt off to make them happy. That's what works, right? It time and time again. So bi-directional feedback. I'm going to go on a tangent here. I'll get better at this. Bi-directional feedback. Ask the employee, how am I doing? Review me. What is it that I have that I'm doing or not doing that you're not quite satisfied with? Put them in the spot. It's okay. And they're going to be fidgety, especially young. They don't want to they don't want to, make you upset or whatever the case is, right? So, but like, you have to ask, hey, I'm here to help you. I don't know how to help you if you don't tell me how I'm doing, right? Like, are we on different frequencies, right? These are some of the things you want to catch early. So it has to be bi-directional. You and the leader and the employee are there to figure out how to make the business successful. That's what it's about. It's not about you. It's not about me, right? So that's bi-directional feedback. Keep that in mind. Third, when no matter what you've done consistent feedback. You made it bi-directional. You know where it's headed. It's just not working, and eventually you may just need to have that conversation. It's going to suck, but we all face that situation. You have to have an attitude of the how do I say this? It's not a fit is the right attitude to have. Not this is the language how you speak about it, and in fact it's not about just speaking about it. This is how you should truly feel, because you never know, maybe it's your management style that made them didn't perform well. Uh, your job is not to assess if it's their fault or your fault. Who gives a damn? Your point is to being absolutely respectful. One of the things that I say is, if I can't make you happy here, I'll help you look for a job. Something I say to all my team members throughout. It always works, right? It makes sense, and I do. I follow through, right? Of course, they're going to be disappointed. They're going to be hurt. All that emotion is going to go. That's unavoidable. Nobody wants to hear this, but just to limit the damage, if you will, it's to make sure that do it respectfully and say, hey, the expectations of this role is the following, right? You need to be able to say this. It's not maybe this is not a fit because you haven't met these expectations, but this is not a fit. Maybe the expectations are too high. I don't know, right? But end of the day, we've tried it. We've tried it all. It's not a fit. I really think you'll be happy at a different company, right? It's not a fit for us, right? Is the person going to start smiling and go, oh, thank you, blah blah blah? No, it's going to be still tough, but this is how you do it empathetically given the bad situation that we're in. So but if you do it early enough when they started, the it's not going to be as painful for them, right? So because end of the day, you have a duty to the company, right? You're getting paid for to do your job as a leader, so yeah, and you have to pull through. So keep that in mind. It's not a fit attitude, is how I would put it. Lastly, so you as a leader are also an employee, right? You might get fired, right? And it might be a surprise for you. So which means like your boss didn't do a good enough job to communicate that with you. On that note, so in that situation, you should think, what could I have done? I know my boss didn't talk to me enough. Like, what could I have done? You're a leader. You need to solve problems that are very hard to solve. So even in this situation where your manager did not communicate you enough, you schedule the one-on-one, you ask for a one-on-one, and you make him or her, how am I doing? Make him answer that. Make her answer that. How am I doing? Right? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What are the expectations you had, and how am I doing? So because and force that out of them. So that can be avoided as well. So it goes both ways, if you will. You as an employee, if you want to grow in your career, this is something that I would highly recommend that you engage with your hiring manager if they're not engaging with you. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. So I hope this helps, this kind of content. Comment below if this is helpful. If there's any particular topic you want to cover, I have a list of topics that I'll cover in the future, of course, and we'll talk about things like this. But if there's a very particular topic you want to cover, mention it. I'll make sure to read it. Keep daring. Love you all. See ya.